Welcome back to Chatter on the Wire. Today we're going to take a look at some LED lights that I purchased for a project a while back. In total, we bought 14 of these. We needed 13 at the time. As of today, which is just over a year and probably 3 months since we first started this, but just under 1 year since the majority of the bulbs were purchased, we've had 6 burn out, or at least half of it burn out, and we'll take a look at the power supplies on these, and we'll dismantle these and take a look at the guts of it, and I'll demo or show a bit of what I think is happening and why these are failing. I did a bit of research on LED bulbs of this size in the past, and the more I've dug into them again here in the past 24 to 48 hours, I've seen that this is not unique to this vendor at all. So if you are in the marketplace for a large LED bulb, in our case we were looking for something with 300 watt or more equivalent lighting. This ended up being a 5400 lumen bulb at 2700K on the color range, because we wanted to keep that old yellowish tint. Anyways, not unique to these guys at all, but if you are in the market for LED bulbs, make sure you pay attention to this and do a bit more research. While the LEDs are good for their 50,000 hours, the power supplies themselves seem to be what's failing much more readily on these than the LEDs themselves. One thing to be aware of as this video progresses is there is a lot of flickering light. Hopefully nobody has problems with that strobe feature, but just keep that in mind as you continue to watch this. So the flickering you see here isn't real pronounced. As the day goes on and these heat up, it did normally get a lot worse, but we'll go ahead and head outside here in a sec and cut the first case off these, because they do not just easily pull apart. Powering it back up without that translucent plastic over the top of it, you can now see that only half of the lights are actually lighting up like they're supposed to. There isn't much holding all this together. On top of this piece here, there's 7 screws, a bit of caulking around the outside, and then some what's most likely hot glue that holds the wires in place throughout the middle there. Once those screws are removed, the hot glue, and then those wires clipped, it's fairly easy to put a screwdriver along the outside and pry up this top aluminum plate. So once we've popped that top LED plate off, it's fairly easy to get to the aluminum heat sink, for really a lack of a better term, underneath that. There's really nothing from this side we need to deal with, so when we flip it over, there's 4 more screws that hold the plastic plate that holds the E39 Mongol screw for putting it into the light bulb in place. Popping those off gives us access to the underlying power supply. There's 2 separate power supplies in there. They are very ugly, glued in place with some sort of heat resistant caulking. These were not the easiest to get out by any means, but once we did get them completely pulled out, you can see that they basically just take a 120 volt input AC, and they convert that over to, in theory, 120 volt DC. I didn't realize this at the time until I actually hooked it up the first time to a voltmeter, which we'll see here in just a second.
Okay, yes, it is a bit of a kludge of a setup here, but connections are all safe, or safe as they're going to get. But I get about 102 to 100 and looks like 6 or 7 volts DC out of this. So this little device here is putting out a lot more DC than I would have assumed. Switching over to the other one, actually puts out more. We're actually seeing in the 115 to 116 range. So I'm wondering if this is an issue with that power supply. Problem was, it was hard to tell which one was going to what. But as you can see, this one's regularly sitting in the 115-ish mark. So there is something in here where it's just converting 120 volt AC to roughly 120 volt DC to run these LED panels.
So these are the panels that I pulled out of there. They do have an aluminum backing on them. I did a little research and couldn't find the manufacturer specifically on this. When I was done with that though, I did go to the next light and verify that I was having the exact same problem with that. In this chunk of video you can actually see much better on how one side is completely lit up and the other side is dark. I went through all 6 of the lights that I had and found that 4 of them were doing this, and 2, while we did have flickering problems in the past, currently are not showing problems, so I did not cut those open at this point in time. So all said and done, I ended up having 8 of these power supplies. I've set 4 of them aside, and I believe 4 of them are actually still good. I haven't gone back in and tested these last 6 yet for sure, but I'm not naming the vendor specifically on this one because I don't believe that this is something unique to them. I just want to point out that if you are researching for bright LED light bulbs, in this case for us it was these E39 Mongol bases, specifically to replace 300 watt bulbs, that you need to make sure that you do a lot of research and probably even follow back up with the vendor to make sure what their warranty covers and double check how many different power supplies they have in the base there, because when one goes it really is very distracting, and you would think that you'd be fine to continue to use it, but it creates enough power or leaves enough power in those other bulbs that it just continues to flicker, which ends up ruining any ability to utilize these lights in the future. Anyways, hope you got something out of this. Give me some feedback, let me know.